Revealed, the incredible strength within her pain inspires a transformative journey of discovery. Sarah Thompson sat on the floor of her cluttered living room, the box of her late husband's belongings surrounding her like memories she couldn't shake. Among the fragments of a life once full of laughter, a brittle envelope caught her eye. As she opened it, letters spilled out, fragile scripts that whispered of ambition and legacy. They spoke of a family devoted to healing, a lineage of doctors and researchers impacting lives. Each word stirred inside her, a longing she had buried beneath the daily grind of nursing, bills, and the chaotic needs of her 2 children, yet here she was, suffocating under the weight of grief and responsibility. As a nurse, she spent endless nights wiping the brows of the ill, her heart aching alongside theirs. Mia and Jake were her world, yet within her grew a yearning for more, a calling silenced by the shouts of bills and the reality that had become her life. She hesitated, grappling with the gnawing guilt that followed every thought of ambition. Was it selfish to dream? To chase a path her husband would never tread? The noise of morning faded as Sarah lingered over the letters. Her heart raced, an irregularity that matched her breathing. She feared their contents would remind her that nurturing her true potential could mean neglecting her children. Seeing Mia's bright eyes filled with potential or Jake's wide smile brought her joy, but the reality struck, while she cared for others, who was caring for her? Dr. Marcus Green had seen something in her, a spark. In exchange for shadowing him, a glimmer of her former aspirations shone through the fog. But questioning faces haunted her. Her colleagues, who had become friends, muttered about the risks she was taking. Family members worried she was courting disaster. Their voices echoed louder as she approached the potential of her dreams, stronger and fiercer than the brutal honesty of her responsibilities. Each encounter left her grappling with resentment and doubt, emotions tangled up like threads in a broken quilt. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Sarah navigated the tension at the hospital, another incident sparked a fire beneath her anguish. A patient fell victim to a blatant injustice, and suddenly the stakes grew immeasurable. Lingering whispers of her husband's esteemed lineage now cast shadows over her true aspirations. Could she fight against a system that seemed to thrive on her kind's suffering? The struggle became a pressure cooker within her. Could she balance her children's needs and the fight for her future? Suddenly, the world felt devoid of clarity, constricting around her like a vice. Each choice danced dangerously close to sacrifices she wasn't ready to make. As she wrestled with her conscience, Sarah confronted a chilling realization: pursuing her dreams could tear apart the very fabric of her family. The love that grounded her now felt like chains. What price would she pay to reclaim a piece of herself, to write her story anew? With her heart racing, a single truth emerged: she stood at a perilous crossroads, and the path she chose could irrevocably alter everything. With each passing day, Sarah felt the weight of her aspirations settling deeper into her chest, confounding her resolve. The haunting memory of her husband's commitment flickered in her mind like a warning light. What would he think of her now, wrestling with the impulses of flight and failure? Morning shifts at the hospital turned into stages for her internal battles. The rhythmic sound of monitors and the sterile scent of antiseptic began to feel less like a sanctuary and more like a cage. The conversations with Dr. Green inspired clarity amidst the chaos. He rarely told her what to do but instead posed questions that pierced through her fog of self-doubt. During their last shift together, he had gently prodded, "What do you want to see in the mirror when you look back 10 years from now?" His calm demeanor and thoughtful inquiries forced Sarah to evaluate her life beyond the immediacy of motherhood and the demands of nursing. It was uncomfortable, but within that discomfort lay the potential for growth. After their discussion, she found herself seated in front of her laptop that evening, fingers poised above the keyboard. Whatever she typed wouldn't just be a description of her day, it would be a stepping stone toward uncovering her buried ambitions. She envisioned the stories she could tell, the lives she could influence, and the impact she could have if she dared to pursue medicine as her late husband had. Each keystroke felt momentous, a declaration against the chaos surrounding her. Just as she started to draft her application for medical school, Mia's laughter echoed from the other room. The joy her daughter brought felt like a warm blanket, but it was simultaneously a reminder of the stakes at play. Would this path mean she would have to sacrifice moments like these? Could she not be both a mother and a student, a caregiver and a professional? Shifting in her seat, the guilt erupted anew. Memories of late nights spent cramming for exams clashed viciously against her responsibilities at home, cooking, cleaning, helping with homework. Yet, an unexpected reservoir of determination began to rise within her as she recalled why she had chosen nursing in the first place: the desire to help, to heal, to make a difference. The weekend loomed ahead, and Sarah steeled herself for more complex decisions. Her phone buzzed with an incoming text from a colleague, a casual invitation to grab drinks. A reminder of the collective lives she had kept at arm's length. It struck her then that nurturing her ambitions did not necessitate abandoning her connections. Instead, perhaps it was time to lean on the very network she hesitated to engage, inviting them into her journey. What if, she wondered, by sharing her goals with her colleagues or confiding in her closest friends and family, she could galvanize support rather than judgment? The idea was terrifying yet exhilarating, reminiscent of that fragile hope she had stumbled upon with the letters from her husband. As night descended, Sarah lost herself in contemplation. Should she dare to divulge her aspirations, to become the person she once hoped to be? Her drive was veiled in uncertainty, but with it came an ember of expectancy. The next day, Sarah would approach Dr. Green once again, her heart racing with the prospect of unveiling her ambitions. She would seek not just mentorship but understanding from those closest to her. Could she transform her grief into a launching pad for her dreams? The answer awaited her, hinged upon a confession. In that moment of introspection, one underlying truth recoiled inside her: this newfound path might lead not just to her professional triumph but redefine what success looks like for her family. Tomorrow loomed like a thundercloud pregnant with possibilities, and with it came the flicker of hope. Yet, amidst this awakening, she felt a tightening grip of fear. What if she truly went for it and failed? The thought gripped her heart with icy fingers, but it transformed instead into fuel for her burgeoning resolve. As dawn kissed the horizon, Sarah stood on the precipice of something momentous. Her unwillingness to remain stagnant compelled her forward. Would she confront her fears and embrace this next chapter of her life, or would she retreat back into the shadows of self-doubt? The momentum of her choices pressed against her like an ocean tide, and the second wave of her journey was about to crash. The hospital's fluorescent lights flickered slightly as Sarah entered the break room, the sterile air thick with anticipation. Her heart thrummed in rhythm with the pulse of her yearning. Today was the day she would voice her ambitions. Dr. Green was already seated at the small table, a steaming cup of coffee cradled in his hands. The sight of him brought the memories of their recent conversations flooding back. Now more than ever, she needed to articulate what had been brewing beneath her surface. "Good morning, Sarah," he said, his tone warm yet probing, as if he could sense the storm of thoughts she had been wrestling with. "Hi, Dr. Green. Can we talk?" The directness of her words surprised even her. They tumbled out of her mouth like a long-held breath released at last, mingling with the hope that damaged aspirations could find renewal. "Of course. What's on your mind?" As they settled into conversation, Sarah found her throat tightening. Each word weighed heavily with unexpressed fears and dreams. "I want to apply to medical school," she blurted, her voice wavering. "I want to do more, to heal more." Dr. Green's eyes softened, reflecting genuine interest. "That's a significant commitment. What made you decide now?" In that moment, Sarah saw the path clearly. Healthcare had always been her sanctuary, but it was the catalyst of pain that forced her into clarity. "I think about my husband and what he wanted. I think about my daughter." The vulnerability wrapped around her, but she pressed on. "I want to be an example for Mia, to show her that pursuing one's dreams is worth the fight even in the face of fear." Dr. Green nodded slowly. His silence felt heavy but supportive. Fear is a constant companion of growth. It can either inhibit or inspire. The choice is yours to make. Those words hung in the air, igniting both a flicker of resolve and another swell of doubt. What if her husband's legacy overshadowed her own identity? She could feel the familiar guilt creeping back. What if I'm not good enough? What if I take this leap and fail? Those questions are valid, he replied thoughtfully. But they can't dictate your journey. You'll discover strengths you never knew you had. Success isn't an absence of failure, it's the courage to keep moving forward. You are capable of more than you realize. As she processed his encouragement, something profound shifted inside her. Something within Sarah sparked a longing not just to heal others but to uncover her own potential. She had spent years hiding from her aspirations, but now, she stood at the edge of transformation. With her resolve bubbling, she considered the next step. It wasn't just about her application to medical school, it was also about forging connections, sharing her journey with those around her. I think I want to talk to my colleagues about this too, she confessed, feeling the weight of the moment. I need their support, make it real. Engaging your network is wise, he replied. It will not only hold you accountable but show you that you are not alone in this. Start small, share your intentions. Their reactions may surprise you. After their conversation, Sarah left the break room feeling lighter, as if she had shed some of her burdens. The walls that had once ensnared her hopes began to crumble. She envisioned a conversation with her work friends, an admission of her intentions wrapped in both vulnerability and strength. As she prepared to return to her duties, the phone buzzed once more with another invitation. It wasn't just for drinks, it was an invitation to weave community into her ambitions. What if those casual connections could become a safety net? The day rolled into evening. Mia's laughter echoed in her mind as she drafted a message to a close friend. I have something to share, something important. Just as she hit send, a tangible sense of urgency swelled within her. The weight of her aspirations was no longer stifling. It propelled her forward, revitalizing her spirit. Sarah realized she was no longer on the periphery, she was stepping into a new role, both as a mother and a budding physician in her own right, but as excitement coursed through her veins, a shadow of apprehension clung quietly at the edges, whispering uncertainties. Had she truly made the right choice in not only sharing her dreams but exposing her vulnerabilities? Could she withstand the scrutiny of others? The answers danced just out of reach, tantalizing yet elusive. Tomorrow promised to be a pivotal intersection, she would either rally her connections or retreat into doubts. The tide of her transformation rose as she faced the reality of her decision, and the world beyond her comfortable confines loomed like an open sea, daring her to sail onward. The next day dawned with a sense of unfamiliar resolve, sunlight streaming through the kitchen window as Sarah prepared breakfast for Mia. The ritual of making pancakes was now laced with an undercurrent of exhilaration and nerves. Each flip of the pancake mirrored her own flipping thoughts and emotions. What would she say? How would her colleagues respond? While Mia's laughter bubbled in the background, Sarah poured syrup over the golden stacks. The sweet aroma wafted through the air, a comforting reminder of the simple joys she cherished. Yet, the gravity of her ambition loomed larger than ever. She savored this moment but recognized it wouldn't last all too soon. She would face the uncertainty of her revelations. After breakfast, as she hugged her daughter goodbye at the school gate, a flicker of anxiety danced in her chest. I love you, Mama. Mia's voice echoed as she skipped away, stirring a fierce determination in Sarah. She wanted to embody every ounce of ambition and love that she poured into her daughter, proving to Mia that dreams weren't fleeting, they were a pursuit worth every struggle. At work, the pace of the hospital was relentless, the rhythm of beeping monitors and bustling staff a stark contrast to her internal stillness. With each patient interaction, her confidence burgeoned. Perhaps today, she could inspire her peers to rally with her. As she stepped into the break room, she could practically feel a weight shifting in the air. She found a small group gathered around the coffee machine. Her breath hitched as she approached. It was now or never. "Hey, everyone," she called, injecting a clarity into her voice that she hadn't anticipated. Their heads turned in unison, a mix of curiosity and surprise spurring her on. "I have something to share, something really important," she began, heart racing. "I've decided to apply to medical school." The declaration struck a chord, resonating in the silence of the room. The initial reaction shocked her, hushed whispers flitted between her colleagues. "Really? That's amazing," came the first enthusiastic voice. It belonged to Jennifer, her close friend, who quickly joined Sarah's side. "You've always been so dedicated. You'll make a fantastic doctor." Just as relief washed over her, a dissonant voice cut through. "Medical school? Isn't that a lot to take on at this stage?" George, a senior nurse, leaned against the counter, skepticism etched on his face. The chill of doubt trickled back through her, making her question whether she belonged in this world of aspirations. "I know it's a challenge," Sarah replied, steadying her gaze. "But I believe it's time I chased my dreams. I want to show my daughter that pursuing what you love is worth fighting for." With her heart racing, she anticipated George's response. "Sure, but balancing your current responsibilities with studying isn't easy," he responded, a hint of concern shadowing his tone. "What if it all becomes too much?" Every word he spoke felt like an arrow aimed squarely at her vulnerability. But rather than retreating, she summoned the lessons from Dr. Green's earlier words: growth required pushing past fear. "Maybe it will be hard, but I'm willing to fight through it," she asserted, her voice firm. "What I gain from this journey will not only affect me but also set an example for Mia. I want her to see the value in chasing dreams no matter the obstacles." The air thickened as Sarah leaned into the uncertainty. The room stretched in a tense silence before new voices ignited the conversation again. Others began to share their own dreams and fears, creating a web of mutual encouragement. It was a revelation her vulnerability had ignited a collective flame. With each connection forged in this moment, uncertainty faded. As new commitments and ideas swirled around her, she began to realize the strength of community and personal development. Deep within, she felt the tide of her transformation swell. This was a community she had never truly embraced, but now she craved their support. Yet, not all was settled. A seed of doubt lingered. What if this new endeavor took a turn for the overwhelming? Could she truly balance her duties with the challenge of medical school? Casting a look around the room, filled with smiles and shared experiences, she understood that these friends, these colleagues could morph into a support system she'd only just begun to imagine. They would either propel her forward or reveal her weaknesses. Tomorrow would demand even greater courage. Would she step into this new role with the same bravery she showed today, or would the early doubts creep back in, diluting her newfound resolve? The reflections raced in her mind as she prepared to leave, the excitement of the journey ahead tempered by the shadows of potential struggle. Uncertainty loomed again, urging her onward. She was ready for the leap of faith that awaited. But as she looked at the faces of those around her, she questioned, what other truths might be unveiled in this pursuit of a dream? As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and lavender, Sarah returned home, the weight of the day settled in her bones. Despite the invigorating exchange at work, a familiar tension coiled in her stomach. How would she weave her medical aspirations into the fabric of her hectic life? After tucking Mia into bed, Sarah settled at the kitchen table, papers and a laptop spread before her, a battleground where dreams and logistics collided. She sipped from her mug, its warmth beckoning her to embrace the task ahead. The online application portal glimmered like a beacon, a gateway to her future, but also a source of self-doubt. She hesitated, fingers hovering above the keyboard. What if she stumbled? What if, in the quest for medical school, the balance of her current responsibilities unraveled? The laundry list of potential pitfalls began to flood her mind: sleepless nights, the toll on her relationship with Mia, losing the connection with her colleagues. Yet, beneath that tide of fear, her determination flickered like a candle caught in a gust, resolute, and unyielding, distractions nagged at her, memories of the day replaying in her mind. The skepticism from George gnawed at her, yet Jennifer's support resonated, fortifying her resolve. Each voice amplified the internal dialogue. Was she truly capable of more than her current self? Could she blend her roles as a mother, friend, and aspiring doctor, without sacrificing who she was? Setting her mug down, Sarah closed her eyes and breathed deeply, invoking the stillness around her. She envisioned the woman her daughter would grow up to respect, one who faced challenges head-on rather than retreating into fear. It became clear that embracing this journey was not merely about personal achievement. It was a chance to embody resilience, to show Mia the importance of passion and perseverance. With renewed vigor coursing through her, she began typing. The application questions challenged her self-perception, diving into her motivations and past experiences. She articulated her years on the front lines of nursing, each patient encounter a stepping stone, defining her purpose beyond the clinical. The passion in her heart surged with every keystroke, transforming anxiety into clarity. However, self-reflection revealed more than just enthusiasm. It unveiled the shadow of doubt that lingered insidiously. Could she endure the loneliness of late-night study sessions away from Mia? How would she navigate scenarios where fatigue threatened to undermine her performance at work? As her thoughts spiraled, anxiety threatened to overshadow her progress. She hesitated, questioning if she was ready to embrace this part of her identity. Yet, just as the doubt mounted, the stories of her parents flickered in her memory. They faced struggles that once felt insurmountable, yet they never backed down from their aspirations. With steady fingers, she tapped out a personal statement that detailed not only her ambitions but also her fears, the potent combination informing her journey. This wasn't merely about medical school, it was about reclaiming her aspirations and investing them into her future as well as Mia's. Just as Sarah pushed the final submit button, a breath caught in her throat, and she grappled with the enormity of what she had done. The application was a commitment, a brave leap into the unknown. However, the exhilarating sensation of taking control lent her the support she had craved. She was not simply stepping towards a dream, she was crafting the narrative of her life. As she turned off the computer, a sense of uneasy fulfillment washed over her. Was she truly prepared for the inevitable challenges ahead? That question hung heavily as she made her way to bed, the weight of her decision echoing within her. As darkness enveloped the house, she wondered what the next day would bring. Would the response from the admissions committee empower her or plunge her deeper into uncertainty? Even as she closed her eyes, her heartbeat quickened. Was this strength sustainable, or merely a flicker of hope in a sea of doubt that loomed ahead? With uncertainty lingering like an uninvited guest, she braced herself for tomorrow's possibilities, her courage caught in the precipice of transformation. Would courage carry her through, or would she falter at the first sign of strain? The morning light seeped through the curtains, illuminating the kitchen where Sarah sat, a cup of coffee in hand, fingers nervously tapping on the table's surface. Thoughts looped in her mind like a record losing its place. Today marked a new chapter, yet she couldn't help but feel the suffocating weight of potential rejection hanging over her. The acceptance emails wouldn't arrive for weeks, but the uncertainty hung in the air, a palpable tension she could slice with a knife. She spent the morning juggling Mia's breakfast and the clutter of household to-dos. Each task was a distraction from the gnawing anxiety that spurred her ambitions, an internal clock ticking down to a moment when her dreams could either take flight or fall flat. The chaos of motherhood provided comfort and chaos equally. However, her thoughts became a battlefield. Could she truly handle it all? During the car ride to work, Spotify played her favorite playlist, each song an echo of her aspirations. Yet, as she found her rhythm on the road, the familiar voice of George invaded her thoughts, nitpicking her resolve like a persistent mosquito. You really think you can manage school, a job, and Mia? The question bounced around her mind like a pinball, generating a cycle of doubt she desperately wanted to escape. She parked and reluctantly walked into the hospital. Once inside, she felt the crisp air of professionalism envelop her. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, illuminating the warren of busy nurses and doctors. Sarah inhaled deeply. This was her escape from the emotional turmoil of her ambitions, at least for a while. She slipped into her scrubs and stepped into the rhythm of work, caring for patients overflowing with stories and needs a vivid reminder of her why. The shift was demanding, filled with unexpected emergencies and fraught moments that pushed her to the edge of stamina. Yet amidst the chaos, every heartbeat and every patient interaction lit a fire within. She moved from bed to bed, pouring empathy and expertise into her care, rediscovering her passion. Small victories, a patient expressing gratitude, a hesitant child offering a smile, stirred something deeper in Sarah. This was what she wanted for her future: to heal, to make an impact, to be more than just the sum of her roles. As the day stretched on, something shifted. Each patient's journey mirrored her own, battling fears, facing uncertain futures. In those interactions, she began to confront her own narrative. If they could persevere, why couldn't she? The doubts whispered less aggressively now, replaced by a burgeoning sense of possibility. Seeking her dream didn't mean abandoning her role as a mother, it meant expanding the narrative they would share. By the end of the shift, Sarah's exhaustion washed over her, but it was the kind that came after a fulfilling day, one filled with purpose. As she washed her hands, she caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror. An unremarkable figure standing amidst the reflections of skilled healers, but she felt something shift. Here, in this moment, she grasped the hidden strength she possessed, an amalgamation of hope, motivation, and the unwavering love she had for Mia. She arrived home to find her daughter asleep, framed by the dim glow of the nightlight. As she stepped quietly into the room, a sense of clarity washed over her. She could redefine her life. Aspirations didn't dilute her role as a mother, they enhanced it. That was the revelation she needed. Yet, as she tucked Mia in, a new question began to form in her mind. What lay beyond the acceptance email? Even if she received good news, what challenges awaited her on this path? Would her newfound resolve withstand the pressure of medical school? Tomorrow held so many answers, and yet, just as many unknowns loomed large. The journey was only beginning, but would she be prepared for what it demanded of her? Courage flickered dangerously close to a flame of uncertainty, igniting a daunting prospect ahead. What if the pressure pushed her to topple, questioning not just her capacity but her worthiness of her dreams? The sun peeked through the blinds, a gentle reminder that it was time to rise and face the day once more. Sarah stretched her limbs, but the weight of her aspirations pressed down on her, casting an undeniable shadow over her thoughts. Those questions from the past night lingered, swirling around in her mind like a restless storm. Each heartbeat thudded with uncertainty, but embedded within that disquiet was a steadfast resolve. Today could be the day she took another step toward her dreams. After she prepared breakfast for Mia, she felt invigorated despite the early hour. Each clink of the plates was a pulse of determination, a reminder that she was nurturing not just her child but also her ambitions. They were interconnected, and she needed to embrace this interdependence. At the hospital, Sarah found herself immersed in a flurry of activity. The chaotic environment, once intimidating, now felt invigorating. She thrived on the pressure, darting between patients, her focus honing sharper with each encounter. It was exhilarating to feel needed, to be a part of the healing process. She could feel the purpose pouring into her veins, igniting a newfound energy, a distinct departure from her earlier self-doubt, yet it was during the encounters with colleagues that something unexpected unfolded. While discussing a patient with a senior nurse, an encouraging word inadvertently slipped through Sarah's lips. "I think we could try an alternative treatment plan that might align better with their needs." She caught herself mid-sentence, flushing at her assertiveness. The nurse raised an eyebrow, studying her for a moment before nodding in appreciation, clearly taken aback by Sarah's suggestion. That acknowledgement lit a fire within. For the first time, she debated whether to lean into this hidden confidence. Doubt still hovered like dark clouds, but this small victory felt monumental. Breaking through the barriers she'd set for herself seemed less daunting now. As she took her morning break, Sarah sat in the break room, gripping her coffee and reflecting on the shift in her mindset. She recalled the moments when she had second-guessed her instincts in the past, crumpling under the pressure of perceived inadequacies. But now, in the quiet of the room, she could see that perhaps those moments of hesitation originated from a lack of practice, not a lack of ability. the afternoon brought with it a series of rapid-fire surgeries, some cases simple and straightforward, others tangled in complications. Each experience honed her skills, reinforced her passion, and, most importantly, showcased her ability to adapt under strains she thought she'd never manage. Time bent around her as she lived for those moments. She was not just a caregiver but a catalyst in her patient's journeys. By the end of her shift, exhilaration bubbled within her veins. Stepping back to reflect, she marveled at the evolution she had undergone in only a day. The pressures she once feared now felt manageable, guiding her towards growth instead of stifling it. Yet beneath the surface, uncertainty flickered. What if today was a brief flurry of confidence washed away by tomorrow's reality? As she drove home, the weight of the day's revelations began to settle in her mind. This newfound strength felt fragile, built on the foundations of fleeting successes rather than the unshakable belief she'd hoped for. The thought of facing the school application, with all its associated risks and fears, loomed before her like an insurmountable wall, but the notion that it was built by mere chance irked her. She needed a plan, a concrete strategy to fortify her determination against the external pressures that lay ahead. It was time for a serious assessment of her capabilities, and she knew she had to confront George's insidious voice head-on. As she tucked Mia into bed that night, a distinctive clarity emerged. The battle was not merely against the external challenges life would throw her way, but the internal struggles that echoed within her mind. She couldn't afford to let doubt suffocate ambition any longer. In the stillness of the room, she vowed to prepare not just for the application but for the journey beyond it. The night was silent, but within her, a storm of anticipation brewed. She felt ready to confront not just her fears, but the expectations she had set for herself. As she lay in bed, exhaustion washed over her, yet her heart danced with a newfound rhythm of defiance. Would it be enough to stand up to the upcoming challenges? And would the following weeks reveal strength she had yet to uncover? As sleep began to take her, she whispered to the universe whatever awaited her, she was ready. Tomorrow promised to unveil the first confrontation with those lingering doubts. She could feel it in the air, a pivotal moment just beyond the horizon. The morning light unveiled a crispness to the air as Sarah prepared for what felt like the beginning of something monumental. The specter of looming doubts nagged at her consciousness, threading a complex tapestry of anxiety and excitement. Sitting at her kitchen table, notes scattered before her, she focused on the school application. This seemed a tangible representation of all that she wanted, yet it also amplified every fear she had harbored. Mia's laughter echoed from the living room as she played with her toys, blissfully oblivious to the weight that pressed down on her mother's shoulders. Flickers of pride surged through Sarah at the sound. Mia was her light, her inspiration, and in those moments, she determined that her aspirations were worthy, not just frivolous dreams. She had to convey that dedication through this application. After a restless morning filled with waffling over phrasing and content, Sarah gathered her notes and headed to the hospital. The activity busied her thoughts, yet fragments of uncertainty hung over her like a gathering storm. She would face George today, her former mentor who had been dismissive of her aspirations in the past. Their history was riddled with precision and critique, the two of them sitting across from each other in sterile meeting rooms, his feedback often dripping with condescension. Each scoff at her ideas had etched a bruise deep within, challenging her self-worth. Despite this, Sarah focused on fortitude, the glaring realization that she had emerged stronger since those turbulent days. The dynamic of her work had changed, her interactions with patients and colleagues were no longer dictated by fear but grounded in empathy and assertiveness. She had delivered diagnoses, made decisions that seemed daunting before, and ushered healing into fractured lives. Now she would confront George, not as a subordinate but as an equal. The hospital buzzed with energy as Sarah navigated her way to the surgical ward. Each encounter framed her evolution, her confidence solidifying like an oak rooting deeper into the ground. When she spotted George, however, her pulse quickened, the earlier buoyancy wavering under the sheer weight of his presence. "Sarah," he greeted, his tone surprisingly warm, though skepticism laced his words. "What can I do for you today?" In a moment that could have fractured her resolve, she felt the storm within coalesce into a singular focus. Rather than shrink back, she approached him with intent. I wanted to discuss the upcoming projects and offer insights based on recent patient cases. The words felt foreign yet liberating, as if she were unwrapping a gift she didn't realize she possessed. George looked at her, eyebrows arched, assessing. For a moment, his silence was deafening. Insights, you say? Yes, she pressed, summoning an unfamiliar boldness. In 3 out of 5 recent surgeries, alternative approaches yielded faster recovery than our traditional methods. I believe exploring these options could enhance our practices and support our patients better. The words rolled off her tongue, empowered by the adrenaline coursing through her veins, while George processed her revelation. The electric atmosphere charged the space around them. She wasn't just making a suggestion, she was reclaiming a voice he had silenced. A mixture of surprise and admiration flickered across his expression, and for an instant, her heart soared. I can see you've put thought into this, he finally replied, and despite his cautious tone, the edge of his words felt different. Let us explore this notion together. It was a small victory, but in this exchange, Sarah discerned the depth of her growth. She was learning to articulate her ideas and to stand firm in a world that had once felt too large, too daunting. Yet as she left George's office, a new flicker of unease ignited within her. Was it only one conversation that surged her forward? Or did it represent the first step in a far more intricate labyrinth of challenges and confrontations? Encouraged yet apprehensive, Sarah knew she had emerged from that moment with new resolve. The school application swam back into focus, a blend of anxiety and anticipation flooding her awareness. She had voiced her thoughts to an opponent, now it was time to translate that courage into words that would advocate for her ambitions and affirm her worth. As the day waned, the weight of her decisions sat heavy. Would she be able to maintain this verbatim confidence as she faced upcoming challenges? The thread of uncertainty wove itself around her resolve. With an intent to catalyze her transformation, she set her sights firmly on that application. But the echo of George's reaction lingered in the back of her mind. Was this an isolated breakthrough, or had she merely turned over the first stone in a far larger path ahead? In the silence of the night, while Mia slept peacefully, Sarah vowed to honor the burgeoning strength that had begun to unfurl. The coming days would demand more than just this singular moment of bravery. They would require that she consistently test not only her professional aspirations but the very core of who she had become. The inkling of an idea surfaced, a challenge all its own. Could she harness this newfound confidence to dissect every aspect of her life? What could she reveal about herself, and how far could she stretch her limits? A wave of both fear and excitement washed over her as the answers swirled just out of sight. This was only the beginning. The day unfolded with the promise of possibility, though threads of anxiety still wove tightly around Sarah's heart. She had resolved to channel her newfound assertiveness beyond George's office, understanding that this was not merely a one-off encounter but a precursor to a multitude of tests. Each moment seemed laden with potential, demanding a performance from her that she had yet to master. At work, she noticed the shifting dynamics among her colleagues. Their conversations, once interlaced with her trepidations, now seemed to stretch toward collective growth. One particular case captured her attention, a young patient awaiting surgery whose prognosis had been deemed grim. Sarah's emotional armor lifted as she realized that her insights and expertise could potentially sway decisions surrounding this case. As she moved through the hospital corridors, familiar voices ignited memories, moments when she had felt smaller, overwhelmed by others' judgment. But now, she felt a willingness to challenge those narratives. A spark of determination ignited, shifting her focus from self-doubt to a desire to make a tangible difference. When she reached the conference room for the case discussion, she felt the cusp of something transformative. It was the arena not only to showcase her knowledge but also to take part in collaborative dialogue. She entered with her head held high, determined to embody the confidence she had cultivated. Her colleagues gathered, each laden with their own complaints and strengths. As they outlined their concerns regarding the surgery, she listened intently, formulating her thoughts. When the time came, she captivated the room with an analysis of the patient's situation illuminated by her recent observations on recovery protocols. I believe with an adjusted approach, we could enhance not just the recovery but also the patient's overall quality of life, she stated, her voice steady. The room fell silent as they processed her proposition. The hesitation, once familiar and suffocating, shifted into curiosity and contemplation. Sarah could see her colleagues debating internally, and she felt a rush of exhilaration. Was she becoming someone they were willing to listen to, someone capable of influencing outcomes? As the discussion progressed, her newfound confidence breathed life into the dialogue. Responses began to flow, each contributing to a mosaic of ideas that pushed their collective boundaries. Sarah found herself at the nexus of this intellectual exchange, realizing her job title was no longer a barrier but a stepping stone. Yet, just as the meeting approached its pinnacle of creativity, the shadow of doubt crept back at the edge of her thoughts. What if they dismissed her, as George once had? What if her suggestions were met with the same condescending eye that had haunted her? The fear possessed a palpable weight, almost suffocating, yet she pressed on, choosing to confront it head-on. At that moment, the ominous fear crystallized into clarity. She understood that no matter the outcome, this was her transformation. She was not merely a participant, she was an architect of change. Each word she shared added to the foundation of her assertiveness. As the meeting concluded, there was something distinctly different in the air. It felt electric. She had emerged not just as a voice among many but as a catalyst for discourse. The satisfied expressions of her colleagues told her that she had crossed a precipice. Yet, lingering questions danced around her resolve. How could she sustain this momentum? How could she extend the lessons learned here to her application and beyond? The echoes of celebration mingled with the whispers of self-doubt, creating an intricate structure within her. As she stepped back into the world outside, the familiar walls of the hospital felt imbued with a sense of empowerment. If she could engage the room and influence her peers, she could also pour her truth into the application awaiting her attention at home. When her thoughts turned once again to the school application, she recognized a pivotal shift. A newfound urgency accompanied her determination as she envisioned the narrative she would craft. It was not merely about her qualifications, it was a declaration of her journey, her evolution, and her readiness to embrace what was to come. As twilight beckoned, Sarah sat down, fingers poised above the keyboard, the weight of self-doubt eclipsed by her yearning to explore the depths of her potential. With a newfound clarity, she was ready to find out how far she was truly willing to go. The truth became sharper in focus. It wasn't merely about the school. It was about her voice in every surge of conference discussions and the tangible impact she longed to make beyond those walls. She took a deep breath and began typing, knowing that the next challenge awaited her, the daunting measure of revisiting the very foundations of her confidence. Would she dare to unveil the rawest parts of herself, daring to share her vulnerabilities as strengths? The sunlight streamed through the living room window, casting warm rays onto Sarah as she sat, reviewing her application to medical school. The daunting weight she'd felt for weeks was lifting, replaced with a quiet determination. Today wasn't just about filling out forms, it was a testament to her transformation from the shadows of doubt to a solid foundation of ambition and self-belief. Just weeks ago, asserting herself amidst the shadows of her colleagues had been unthinkable. Now, as she reflected on the changes within her, a sense of pride surged through her. Each interaction and every shift at the hospital had brought her closer to discovering the inherent strength she carried, the strength that her late husband had seen in her, which she had momentarily misplaced in the turbulence of life's responsibilities. One poignant moment from last week replayed in her mind. Sarah had gathered the courage to present her innovative ideas during a critical patient discussion, not merely participating but leading the conversation. When the team adopted her suggestions, she felt affirmations ripple through her professional relationships. Even George had nodded along, a single gesture that represented more progress than she had ever imagined from him. It cemented her realization, her voice mattered. It wasn't just about being heard, it was about being respected and acknowledged as an equal contributor in a realm she once thought she could not partake in. Pondering her future role as a student and physician, she recognized the beautiful intertwining of her roles as a caregiver and mother. With every aspiration she pursued, she set an example for Mia, showing her daughter the bravery needed to chase dreams amid adversity. Each application question she typed flowed freely, not just capturing her experiences but illustrating the resilience built from heartbreak and delight intertwined. The submission deadline loomed, and as she navigated the last sections of the application, she felt a growing sense of purpose. She could embrace the complexities of her life. "I am both a mother and an aspiring physician," she typed, summarizing a realization that had taken root deep within. "I stand not in conflict between these roles but unified in my desire to impact lives through healing." With renewed clarity, she clicked the Submit button. The commitment felt monumental, not just sealing her application, but solidifying her newfound identity. She wasn't retreating to the background, she was stepping forward. Days passed, and while she waited for responses, Sarah sought to enrich her journey beyond the application. In the hospital corridors, she championed training sessions for young nurses, sharing her experiences and encouraging them to find their voices. In these spaces, she discovered that teaching others amplified her own confidence. Every question they posed wasn't just an inquiry into nursing practices, it was a conversation that fostered mutual growth. One evening, she gathered her colleagues for a roundtable discussion on patient care innovations, her initiative, born from the strength she had gained. As they threw ideas back and forth, Sarah marveled at how far she had come. The team relied on her insights, not just valuing her input but encouraging her drive toward improvement. Recognition came swiftly. Within weeks, her application response arrived, a crisp email confirming her acceptance into medical school. Joy erupted in her chest, a triumph resonating throughout her being. She leaped from her chair, tears of happiness streamed down her face. It wasn't the acceptance into medical school that filled her with pride, it was the acknowledgement of her journey, rooted in authenticity and the courage to embrace her dreams. In the weeks that followed, Sarah transformed her uncertainty about balancing motherhood and education into a plan. She enrolled in classes, developed a schedule accommodating both her studies and Mia's needs, and reached out to fellow students for support and camaraderie. Each step taken fortified her confidence. She had transitioned from simply surviving day to day to thriving in her new roles, embracing both the challenges of being a mother and the rigor of pursuing her medical career. The trajectory she'd once feared had solidified into a clear vision. She was no longer just the nurse, she was becoming a healer, an advocate, a mother committed to inspiring the next generation through her actions. Feeling invigorated, Sarah reflected on the woman she had become, no longer defined solely by her grief or responsibilities, but by her unwavering pursuit of identity and passion. This was her moment of truth, the culmination of challenges transformed into fuel, igniting her spirits toward achieving her dreams, and through it all, a solid confidence radiated from her soul. As Sarah stood in her kitchen, glancing at her daughter's bright artworks on the wall, she realized what she had convinced herself of initially, that ambition and motherhood were irreconcilable, was merely a lie. They could coexist, fueling each other. She could conquer her future while nurturing her present. This was not merely the end of her submission journey, it was the beginning of a new chapter. With unshakable determination, she embraced her path as an aspiring doctor, a journey defined not by the weight of past expectations, but by a future she was ready to create. Now, the story of Sarah continues, with the resolve to embrace every moment, chase every opportunity, and live fully in her ambitions. And you, dear audience, have the power to witness similar journeys. You need to subscribe now to ensure you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and elevate these inspiring narratives. Comment your reactions and theories about this transformative journey in the comments below. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support is vital in spreading the power of personal overcoming stories to those who can benefit.